So, Richard, for anyone listening who doesn't know you yet, you're a facilitator, you're a trainer, a consultant who helps organizations completely rethink how their teams collaborate, especially in remote and hybrid settings. And you work a lot with tools like Microsoft Teams, for example, but it's really about the people and the culture, not just the tech. I'd love to know, how did you end up doing this work in this space, and what keeps driving you?
Jenny, first things first, Leah, thank you for having me. Thank you for on this podcast, the invite, and being here. It's a privilege and honor, and especially the topic you've chosen to focus on for the world. AI for equity, I can imagine, is just something everybody has to have on their radar, and I would promote that as well. So thank you for that, firstly. How did I end up here? I started in the IT space, and I've been independent since 2005, independent consultant. Went out, so I did IT, but when I left, I was heading up the IT HR function of a huge financial concern. And I decided, let me get out there and do my own thing. And what I was doing was implementing large-scale solutions for global and local companies, being the Oracle, the SAP, and the Workday in the HR space. So what it helped me to do was to actually take and implement technology, as it were, as a large scale footprint, right? HR touches every employee. So whenever you brought in your performance management and your recruitment, your hiring, your recruitment and attraction systems, all of this touched everybody. So I learned a very valuable lesson in this process of where I've come from, why I'm here now, is that if there's one thing you don't do is you implement systems. So then I would go and they will say to me, oh, yeah, come and implement the Oracle system. I said, no. What do you mean, no? I said, I'm here to implement a solution. Why? And I took that statement, which apparently originates out of the 62, 63 days, 1962, 3, about people, process, technology, and in that intersection. So I thought, that sounds very systemly like. Let me change it more to the transformational feel, the people feel. And I changed it to mindset, method, and means. So now what do? I work at the intersection of mindset, method, and means, and that's where the solution lies. So you can imagine, having come from those huge, large-scale rollouts into the COVID period when people went, next thing we were instantaneously dropped into being hybrid and remote, or remote rather. It was totally, everybody worked from home, and we had to grab hold of that understanding and that technology. Teams became obviously one of the centers along it was Zoom. And I loved Microsoft at that time, and I grabbed Teams, and then I started helping the teams. And I just took my natural progression of working at that intersection, and then I applied the mindset method means, and that's been a really nice differentiator because people typically bring the tech. Now, what happens when AI came along? I did the same thing. I thought, great, now let's take AI for HR, mindset method means, and at that intersection, never take AI to the corporate. So that's where my passion lies. It's about taking the solution to companies and making sure you bring in the mindset, which speaks to the inequalities and all the other paradigms that you need to. Because if you just say people, that feels like a little distant. When you speak mindset, you're saying the mindset of the organization as a culture, the mindset of the individual, which collectively makes up the organization, and the hearts and minds. So mindset, method, means, AI, that's the approach I take into organizations. So that's been really amazing to see how people respond and adopt that, because it makes a difference than just bringing the tech.
Fantastic. What a
Wow.
really holistic approach, which is, I think, so important and also very memorable. Mindset, method, means. We've got it. Yeah, so it's something that we can always remember. We can only hold three things in our mind at a time. So you've you've captured us.
Totally. And it's at that intersection, right, Jenny, where it
Mm,
happens. It's at that
mm.
intersection. You cannot take AI only if you bring the people along and you meet them where they're at in the mindset, and they'll be diverse. Yeah. We'll unpack that, but that's
Definitely.
thank
Can
I
I ask
think
can I ask
oh,
a very quick question that we didn't maybe plan to, but just, were you always fascinated by this space? Or is it something that you grew into? As a child, were you interested in the intersection of tech and people, et cetera? Or is this something that came later on?
I I think I can answer from the perspective of the vastness of the universe. I've always just been overawed by us being this tiny and the universe as being that big, and we don't have near the answers we think we have about life and being. So that fascination just culminated for me into the heart and mind, and to when we three engage here right now, there's a dynamic at play that is just not at play in any other facet for anybody, because our three mindsets are just different to anybody else coming together, and we're going to engage through this platform, this discussion, and this podcast differently than you would with your other guests as you had. So it's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Absolutely. And just one more thing. So yesterday, that on the news, they were talking about people going into space, and they asked school children their perspective of, someone landing on the moon. And a little girl just said, "Yeah, I hope they find other species out there, and that we make friends, and that we all become one family." It was a really lovely kind of utopian, idea that this little girl had. She was in primary school, but it was that fascination, that curiosity, that openness to embrace what the universe brings. And I guess when you started speaking, it immediately brought that visual to me of that child who was in awe of what
Oh,
possibilities there could be out there for us.
wow. And it's just in that lies the truth, right? In that heart is still so much unadulterated truth. It's just innocence. Oh, wonderful.
There is, and it's just so sweet. I think that part of the focus on mindset is being human centered rather than technology centered, which I do think quite a lot of companies forget is always the way forward. You can't expect the humans to follow the technology needs to follow the human.
Leah, it's just undoubtedly at that intersection. That's why I had to keep on reminding myself that the way we do it, the method, the means is broader than just the AI, right? The means could be many things, like a simple thing about using Notion to capture certain things that you don't want at your fingertips to bring into the AI to let the AI do its thing. To capture, for example, the language that has changed. When you look at the COVID times, the one line that got me there was I just thought, man, wait, look at this language, proximity bias. Proximity bias. And I unpacked that statement. I thought, what are you actually doing there? What is your impact? And the same here with AI, new language, new paradigms, new mindsets, small little things. But if you don't grab hold of that thread and start following it into the future to assess its impact, like for example, nowadays we speak about capability inversion, and it means that if AI is taking a lot of the thinking and running ahead, and we lose track of that, control of that, and we start abdicating, what is the impact of that in terms of AI literacy? So now you need to bring it into literacy. So to your point, yes, the mindset is huge, but it's all at that intersection of these three,
Mhm.
which I keep on reminding my clients, and then they go, yes, yes, we get you.
So AI is baked into all of the collaboration tools. These tools are able to summarize meetings, draft messages, nudge you about your calendar. I'm really curious what that's actually like on the ground. When you walk into an organization, how are people really responding to this? Because I feel like we're being told that people are adopting it at like really, really fast rates, but we know logically that's not true. What are you seeing that might surprise us?
It is not true. It is not at the rate. There are the companies that manage to do it and have. Maybe the tech company finds a way to, because everybody's so tech oriented and they click on the tool, but that's just, I'm using it. But how I'm finding it, AI is landing, it lands in real terms. It lands in the employee that sits there with relief. Oh, some admin burden's off me. But they still have to get to realize that admin burden that's now supposedly off them. Then there's the guys who just work on the anxiety, and there's the people who work in plain fear. This is coming for me. Microsoft, when we rolled out Teams, there was no fear this is coming for my job. AI is coming for my job is the sentiment, is the feeling because of the hype out there and what is told, and it's going to reduce people and headcounts and so forth. What I did do in this context, as you said, with AI weaving itself in, is that I've actually asked the client and said, can I ask you permission to switch your mind a little bit about this AI and how it's finding its way into the teams and the way and the people working? Can we please call it IA? And they go, what do you mean? I'm saying, you know what? You know when Oprah Winfrey said, "Yeah, you get a car, and you get a car, and you get a car." Well, that's the way I feel about AI. You know that AI, and where did it come from? When OpenAI released AI, what happened? 800 million subscribers in untold shortest periods ever that tech was adopted. Right now, or 100. Right now, there's 800 odd million people in OpenAI using AI. I mean, where's that ever been the adoption? So where does IA come in? I'm saying to the client, approach your employee and say to them, you have got an intelligent or an informed assistant. Every one of you now actually has a, a teammate that can help you to address life. Now, when we put it in that context, what are we doing? We're bringing it closer to, it's not the threat for my job, it's an aid for me to get better at my job. I'm promoting the fact that I'm going to release capacity. Now, AI as well, the other little line that I try and build in with that is saying, for the first time ever, and I speak to this from an equality perspective, because it excites me, and I'm happy for Jenna and Leah to say to me, actually, you got a little wrong, but this is my thinking. For the first time, we have a tool that can actually teach us about the tool. For any and everybody can go to school right now. I don't have to go into a class. I don't have to go and ask anybody. But if I can just get to know what those questions are to ask, AI can teach me what I need to know. So AI can teach me to use AI. When I needed to use Excel, if I didn't know something, I had to go and Google.
Mm.
And then I'm going to learn how to do it. Now I don't. I just say to AI, I need a formula. Give me the formula. I need to know how to do this. Give me the steps to do it. It tells me how to do it. So in other words, we all have a tutor. So it's landing differently. And here's the thing, to your question about, how are the companies responding? And the employees? Yes, they are responding it, but it's because of the mindset, the way we've adopted to approach it and take it into the organization. That needs to change. And there's two words that I just love putting together, and that is intentionality or intention and by design. If there's anything that comes through my vocabulary when I speak with my clients, it's saying, please be intentional and do it by design. Understand your vision, your outcome, and work to that and do it intentionally. So equality is not a word that comes up easy for clients. It's not something they normally put on the radar. So inequality, I think, is something that we need to bring into the mindset. We need to bring into the landscape, into the by design the opportunity to bring equality into the workplace via AI, and do that on purpose. Not, so I hope I haven't transgressed or, sidetracked too much off your questioning, but yes, it lands in a human way. And the fear aspect, I feel, is in the hands for the employees, or the employer rather, to help the employee. And we can even equip the employee to ask AI, how can I feel less fear? They don't have to rely on the employer to tell them any longer. So I think
Mhm.
that's just amazingly different. It's like the universe.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that shift from AI to IA, informed assistant. I wish that more employers had that mindset. In our first episode of this series, we were actually talking about a company called Atlassian who reduced,
Yes. Yes.
60% of their workplace and replaced that 6% with 30% AI. And it's like you can't replace humans with an informed assistant, it and I think that when big headlines like that are coming out, I'm Gen Z. I left university nearly 2 years ago, so I'm in that generation where there are less entry level jobs. This is actually something we talk about all the time, and it's like employers are getting ahead of themselves, thinking that AI could replace humans when actually it should be used as an informed assistant.
Yes.
Um, and it
Yes.
can be used to really level that playing field as well.
You are so right. And I'm hoping I'm coining this phrase correctly. It's just something that came up in my mind. But I would like to, I do position to employers saying, please look at it as, um, you to the, it's AI to the power of you.
Mhm.
So in other words, it's not the other way. I would say it really is AI to the power of you. That's the message I'd like to give to the employees. And also, IA to the power of you. AI sounds like it's coming for you. So I can understand, Leah, where you're saying the conversations are going in the threat, and by just bringing it as an equalizer and an opportunity for each one to leverage, I just think it makes the whole roll out, because to your point, employers are chasing it for profit and speed and productivity and, reduce the bottom line because payroll is my biggest cost driver. But you know what? If there's a competitive edge that you can realize as an employer, as a company now, that is where you're going to get the true essence and opportunity of that employee you recruited. Why? Because that capacity that you're freeing up, I can now truly be the employee that I need to be and show up in that space. Because where I might have been tied down by the administrative burden or, writing, I'm really not that good at writing, but I email, I don't want to lose sight and have the AI write my email, but I want to just give me a base that I can go, that's me, I sound like this, and this is what I want to say. So yes, accelerate, but put the human into it all the time. So AI to the power of you in that context. I don't know if that makes sense, right? I mean, employers need to approach it differently, not by virtue of profit, speed, and bottom line and getting rid of people. Your competitive, when they say the people are your competitive edge, now is the time when people are truly going to become the competitive edge. So why do we say that? Let's think about it like this. They are using AI with your studies, your background, your insight, your beliefs, your values, your mindset, and the methods that you work and the models that you bring in, the frame sets that you work to. When you ask AI and it puts something out there, you're going to look at that and you say, I see that. When I look at that same output, I might not even see what you're seeing because that's not where my paradigm is. That's not where my mindset is. And that's where the differentiator comes in. So institutional knowledge is a huge thing to leverage via AI. No longer do I have to, anyways, we'll get into that one. I don't want to go into too many tangents here, but sticking to,
No, it's great. It's great where you've gone, and it made me think of many different things. The first was that I saw something on Instagram yesterday which said AI is making us lazy, and then it's going to sell us back our knowledge. We're going to stop thinking ourselves, and it's going to sell us back the knowledge at a cost. And actually, the antidote to that is to be intentional about how you use AI. It is to recognize that it's not shouldn't be replacing your thought process, that you
yes,
add to it, and recognizing the uniqueness of your thoughts and what you bring.
exactly.
And I think that's a really good antidote. I think it's helpful for people to remember that it's not doing your job. It can't. It can do some things, but then we need the human oversight and understanding and our different perspectives, and we'll all come at it differently. So I think that's really helpful. But you may have also seen very recently there was a bit about an IKEA case study. I don't know if you've seen that.
I did not.
And it's a really lovely case study and a really good example. So IKEA decided to replace the call center people with AI and the chatbots that it has on the website, and decided that that was going to be a lot better, and that was going to displace a good deal of people. But what they realized was that their interior design was growing and an opportunity. So they used AI to train those people who used to work on the call center to be interior design support people. And
Wow.
it's grown the income within the organization, a brand new
Wow.
income stream. That's the creative thinking that's needed at this time. And I think we need more examples like that to show not that they don't value people, but they're thinking about where people are best deployed to make a difference.
Jenny, that is such a beautiful case study, I must say. And here's what you got me thinking. And you also used the word earlier about reflection. Now, to your point, if we could take that case study and we actually bring it into the realm of development, in other words, the mindset again, we say to the employee, you need to go and look at how, so your question about somebody who says, oh, we're going to have to sell back our knowledge, we're giving it and then they sell it back to us. And I think to answer that, to look at this in the bigger picture, what if we just bring in those design thinking questions that says, how might I prevent or actually make better of the threat that AI might sell that knowledge back to me? So we need to put on our design thinking hats and that mindset and bring the employees, put them into that mindset of attitude, of approach to, yes, you can look at all the threats and give yourself over to the threats, but and it's real. We are human after all. So it's getting, that's why the anxiety isn't all there. But if you can get the mindset to say, "My good, let me acknowledge it, let me process that threat, let me get through my anxiety, but now what? I'm going to continue living in the anxiety, or am I going to ask, how might I actually not just allow my knowledge to be sold back to me, but let me capitalize on how AI can bring me and does leverage for me?" So you're so right. And I think we really need to equip our employees to look at the very equality they can actually institute for themselves, because they are empowered in many ways that the employer actually does not have control over. And I don't mean that in a bad way that the employee wants to control, but it's in our hands to a large extent with AI to take agency of how we can get certain inequalities out of the way. And we can always unpack and speak to that. But again, I
Yeah.
don't want to go into too many tangents. Yeah.
Yeah, no, so
But
helpful.
these are beautiful.
So what you were saying there about, asking, giving helping employees to recognize their own agency is, when you're thinking about that, is that also, is that how you think about co-creation, that involving people in designing how they work? And yeah, I'd love to know more, a bit more about that. Is there a new system, a new way of doing this? And also, maybe, have you seen it go wrong as well, and what that might look like?
Yes. That's such a nice paradigm. This one, this aspect of discussing it there's so many things here. But I'll tell you what, the word collaboration that comes in, and iterative co-creation. So I'm going to unpack a couple of things here. But the one thing that really, really excites me, I don't know if you've seen, but I'm still trying to get on top of it. Even last night, I was going, man, let me go follow up on that and see if it's gone anywhere. But earlier in the year, there was an initiative. I think they raised, please, and quote a number here, but 5.2 billion. But they got 480 million, I think, but I think they're valued at 5.2 billion. But this is a company with Jeff Bezos and all the big names behind it, doing what they called Human And. Have you heard of them?
No, I don't know about this.
You can go to
I haven't either.
the website. It's still there's still no product on the table, but just go and read a little about who's behind this. And what they've done is they're actually saying they're going human-centric AI. They're actually bringing, that's their purpose is to look at collaboration, how humans and AI can collaborate. So I really want to follow that one. I think it's going to, if they can raise and do what they're saying there, it just already for us, it warms the heart, because these people, the very people who are also in the way of putting AI out there for us, are the ones that recognizing, if we don't start doing something now about bringing collaboration capability between human and AI, so the AI is more collaboratively trained, not just to be, here's the answer to your chat. So human ampersand is the sign. You might refer to it differently. Human and?
Yes. Yeah, no, ampersand. Yeah, I
That's good.
completely
Yeah.
understand. Yeah.
Humanampersand.ai. That's their
Mhm.
website. And you can
Okay.
find them on LinkedIn. And I think we should go and follow that and just see and really support them. I would like to, just like we need to support
I've
AI
got to
for
admit,
equity.
when you said who's behind it, I am a little bit nervous.
Yeah.
No, I
Positive.
appreciate.
Yeah.
But go and look at some of the other names there, and
Okay.
because again, I'd like to see the conflict of interest that I think seems to be, there's tension here, right,
Mhm.
between the very people, but there are players in there that I think that I'm hoping that this is why I'm going to watch it. So that's the one thing. The other thing, you asked about how to do it differently. So I go to the clients and we're speaking, and they speak about we taking out these initiatives and they're failing, and we're finding that people are not adopting, and it's literacy, and I talk about AI literacy and AI adoption, and I said, well, firstly, I think the mindset is at play here, and that is the fact that you're probably doing it to the employees and not with the employees. So let's take a change angle on it. Change works best when you're doing it with the employees. Yeah, we've heard all that terminology, all that speak, so what, are you bringing change, do it with the employees? Okay, what does that look like? And I said, I've got something different for you. It just so happened that a couple of years back, I read a book called The Art of Alignment, Patty Beach.
Fantastic. Can we find it on Amazon and all those great places?
Absolutely.
Great.
I met up with Patty. I said, I want to, I'm in, I'm doing, well, you got a cohort on this? I did it. It is all about inclusive relationship, inclusive leadership. And so what happened is I took things out of there, and eventually I so worked and teamed up with Patty and team that we created an application called Quick Align. So if you can imagine what's happening, why will an initiative that you're taking into an organization as huge as an AI implementation and rollout, how can it not work better? Not taking all the opportunity of failure out of it, but how can it not work better when you align all your employees, and I mean all your employees, your C-suite around a proposal that gets put on the table. So the C-suite will put their proposal on the table, and then they, by virtue of Quick Align, by virtue of this tool that we created, it's try to keep it as simple as possible, but the methodology is then baked in it. So instead of doing a survey. Often I see surveys as a little canned. They uh, select out of these 5 questions. But the one I want to put in there, my heart can't answer to all of those. Please, can you? How can I? Oh, well, yes, an open-ended one. I'll put my message. But do we hardly? We didn't at the time. We battled to do open-ended. Now with AI, at least you can get hold of open-ended as well. But this is an opportunity to raise all voices. So I'm just getting quick, but let me speak because we could run out of time. But here's the point: it's a different practice. So what we say then is you put the proposal on the table. It's available to everybody in the company to look at. They read it. That's the propose. So there's 4 steps: propose, probe, repropose, close. That's the 4 steps. Now the probe step is the one where the employees and everybody engages on by virtue of 5 C's. And the 1 C, the commitment C, is the game changer. So here's the point. The C-suite and the CIO and the HR and the big guns are looking at this and saying, we think it should look like this. Now they put it into this proposal and it goes out to the organization. The employees log on to Quick Align and they read the proposal. Now you could segment, you could do it by manager, so you go clusters, or you do a big. And they look at that and then they go and they do 4 C's. The first thing they have to answer to is clarity. What about this proposal do you need more clarity on? That's it. So they literally get opportunity to get everybody on the same page. Can you imagine what that does in an organization when everybody, those clarifying questions, are telling in their own rights where this mindset or this person is coming from? So that's clarity. The very next one then is, have you ever heard something like this? Compliment. What do you like about this proposal? That kicks the mind into a different zone, because how often do we ever get people saying, and this is staged, this is a structured way of coming at this proposal. Now the employees are saying, I like this. Now, as much as they've got fear in their heart, anxiety, love for, hate for, whatever those things are, they still have to account for, well, let me engage my brain and ask, what in my heart, what do I like about this proposal? Now they've got to think it through because they have to fight those fears. And anyway, so now they're putting in their compliments. What do you think would be the next one, right? Is change. Sorry, concern. Concern. What concerns do you have about this proposal? Now I can bring out, I'm worried it's going to take my job. I'm worried it's going to do this. What if it goes there? What if it's too much of this? What if, and they bring out the concerns and then they shift to change. And what would you like to change about this proposal? I feel that's quite a different approach in a structured manner than your normal survey. Everybody's typing in, and it's only because of AI that you can actually do some of this, because AI is going to take all of that and synergize it for us, and it can do it by department, by manager, by leader, by however we need to in the organization structure to get a feel for where the sentiment is. But it's coming out of the heart. Then once you've got that, there's the big thing that we miss, and you can even take these into meetings, right? But the big thing that's missing, the 5th C, is the one that you can actually test all the way through, even after just asking clarity, is commitment. And it's called the 5th to 5. The 5th says, I'm not behind this at all. And the 5 says, I'm on board, I'm on fire, let's get going. And in between, you've got your stages about, it can work for me, but it needs more work. I can live with it, but it needs more work. Those types of things. We got that nicely staged out. But can you imagine having your employee, your workforce, coming back with that commitment scale and see where they are based on that version of the proposal? Now, then once you've done that probe, you will then shift into repropose. Because now what you're going to do is going to synergize, and the leadership's going to look at this, and we're going to respond to some of the people, and because we've got each one's heart there. Then we look at that and we say, great, what do we do with this now? And we then either repropose, right? Because now we're co-creating, we're iteratively. So now we go back to propose, and we put the new rework proposal on the table, and we kick it into probe, and now we probe it again. And we go through the C's and the commitment. And the one that is the key differentiator is when you start asking the employees, let's say an employee's at 3, my desired outcome is a 5. I really want people behind me. Typically we go for a 4. But if you had a 3, you know, the question that we don't get to ask employees, firstly, if it's in a meeting, everybody's talking over everybody. You know, the loudest voice is heard. The poor person in the corner who really has got that one gem to say inclusively is left out. All of this is now, everybody has a voice, everybody contributes, and it's done. Either you can do it, you know, in sync, or you can do it asynchronously, you know, and the asynchronous where everybody just types it in with no pressure and puts their input in. So the point is, you iteratively take this proposal. Now, by the time you get to close, you know exactly where the people are. But the difference in this process is saying to Richard, you're at a 3. What will it take to get you to a 4? Because I need to know what that barrier is. What is that gap?
Yeah.
That is the differentiator.
Yeah.
Because now I'm asking, please, I'm happy that it's so transparent. It is so wonderful to know that half of my workforce is sitting at a 3, but I do need to know what will get you to a 4. Now, therein lies the value, the gem, the the value exchange of being able to mobilize and bring people along the journey. Because when you're done, I feel you've got the input of all the employees. It's
I
a
love it.
process
I love it. I love.
it's
I think
simple.
you're king of the frameworks. We've got mindset, method,
Yes.
means.
Yeah.
We've got clarity, complement, concern, change, and commitment. And I loved fifths to 5.
Yeah.
And also at the heart of my work is a coaching
Yes.
a coaching
Love that
approach.
journey.
And what you were saying very much aligns with the solution focused coaching approach, which is never saying why you not a 4, but you know what would get you from 3 to 4. And sometimes also what makes you a 3 in the first place is what you're
Yeah.
hearing. So it feels very aligned with that solution focused coaching approach, which I'm a real advocate of, and is very resourceful and positive for people.
Oh, absolutely. I just had to put it on the table because it's what I take to my clients. You know, at first, the way we typically did it, because of our background, the way this came from, this methodology, is that we literally did all about alignment. It's just that typically this methodology speaks to people and teams and companies that just they stagnate, they don't get traction behind what they're doing. And this practice that Patty came up with was all, and there's a history in a book, you can read that, but she was motivated through motivated by certain triggers to get to this delivery, this packaging of this. And the point is, we then shifted it into the AI era by saying, let's get alignment on AI initiatives because this is huge, and do it with the people. And here's how you practically do it. So I merely illustrated to get beyond the words on the paper, on the PowerPoint slide. Do it with the people. Yes. And everybody walks out and says, how do we do it with the people? Survey. No. You know, okay. So that's the point. Yeah.
Do you feel that any? Oh, sorry. Go on, Leah. Sorry.
No, it's you go, Mum. It's fine.
You sure?
Yeah, it's fine.
So when you're sat with leaders, is there anything that you haven't mentioned already that you think they're really stuck on right now when it comes to AI and teams?
I think it's the tension between the board and the stakeholders, you know, saying, I really needed to hit the bottom line. And so this approach was just a little bit of that feely, you know, okay, so we bring the people along, but it does need to bring the context into the bottom line. So what we do advocate here for the managers, say, look, the one thing you can do to bring it closer to organizational design and practical everyday, you know, functions of making this real to hit the bottom line it's one thing to say I've got 8,500 employees in my company, but I've got, you know, 620 roles. So work through the roles, because when you're going to bring in the AI in that proposal context, do link it to the roles, link it to the mindset, the method and the means. So that method is the process. How do you bring it into your process and in that role? The role then does this. You can then at least uniformly with what you're taking forward, bring it back into the role so that you actually amplify the impact of what you're doing, because you're not going to rely on the individual. The individual needs to adopt it. They need to have the mindset to understand that it's not yet your threat. So this approach is to get around that. It's coming for me with the IA. And then you say, well, in your role, we're going to do this much, but you can do that. you've got the agency to bring that in, because we want your heart and your mind to take that additional capacity and go and do this. And we're going to have to train you, and training is obviously a totally different ballgame. Does that answer, Jenny? I mean, the tension to hit the bottom line remains. It's just, they
Yes,
do bring
yeah.
me back to it and
So
say, Richard, it's all good, but it's got to hit the bottom line.
I feel like I've been seeing that tension when I have been speaking to my friends who are working in corporate companies. I'm really, really hearing this tension as even, said to them. This seems like it's a global issue that's happening.
No, it is. It's a reality. And you can understand why there's technology typically comes in and makes life easier and saves time, effort, and money. And you need to make some impact of that, or capitalize on it. And I think the AI, when you take it to IA and you get the individuals to lean in and step in and use it as their assistant, you're going to get the greatest benefit in that role, because the employer can influence the role and take that piece of automation that should come out of it, so that the employee is going to do less admin, or less that's going to be automated by AI. That leaves you the capacity to then be the person that we spoke about, that we're going to roll out. And that's part of the rollout mindset and dimension, so that you can go and unleash yourself and be that differentiator.
Nice.
I think there's something actually, as we've just been speaking, and when you mentioned that, it's not just attention to the bottom line, because ultimately companies do need to make money, not just for their shareholders, but to pay the incomes of their staff. It's sometimes about short-term bottom line thinking. So I think ultimately, if we think a little bit longer term, we might not make cuts straight away. We might think, how can we evolve, adapt, change? But because people are thinking of the immediate, I
Mhm.
think sometimes they're making these very short-term decisions for the next 2 years, that they might have to roll back on. And it's maybe how could you carry on for a little bit longer? An example is not necessarily AI related, but someone was mentioning that during the pandemic, people were put on furlough. Some people, did lose their jobs. But none of the senior leaders said, you know what, I'll take maybe a 20% cut just for this
Mhm.
period to get the company through. Instead, they said, oh, well, we just need to cut people. But some organizations would have done that, would have said, actually, we'll cut back on ourselves so everyone can be there for when things get better. And I
Mhm.
think sometimes for me, when I think about this, it's a lot of short-term thinking.
It is. I completely agree with you. Even just with Atalassian, like we were talking about earlier, it's such short-term thinking, because what if one day the internet crashes? What's going to happen in that company then? you AI can't use a pen and paper. AI doesn't know how to use. AI doesn't have a little calculator. A proper one. I think that it's there's a lot of short-term thinking which completely over like has which has a lot of oversight on human capability and humanity within the workplace.
I'm so with you on this, and Jenny and Leah, the fact that we're looking at this short-term understanding. So here's where I would so agree with you, and this is what I was looking to articulate a little earlier about your true human potential, workforce potential, is only now coming to the real forefront. Why? Because me, as a manager, when you say to me, I didn't get to that and that and those KPIs, those were pretty key, but I was really tied up with this, that M&A that came in, drained all my time and resources, and I couldn't do that. And I had to do all these proposals and then do all these calculations and modeling. Can you imagine what would have happened if I could have given that modeling with the M&A to AI, to Excel, Claude in Excel, whatever the matter might be, but to AI. And then I could actually apply where my expertise and what I've been trained in on. Now, that capacity of human potential within an organization has not been realized in the full, because of the fact that we are so often tied up in work facets that doesn't allow us to unleash that. So that's why, Jenny, I would so be with you that please do not let the people go until you've now reassessed their capability and value to your company as the people differentiator, because that is what we've always been saying over the years. Your people is the differentiator, one of the key differentiators, if anything. So How can you know how valuable Jenny or Leah is now that they don't have that burden of that particular facet, because AI is doing that in the role? That's why I was saying come back to the role, let the role take up, AI take up what you can do as an employer, then let the AI and the IA rather, the IA and the employee do what you really employed them to do, because now they've got the capacity to do it and team up and have teammates and accelerate through delivering to you. That's a different shape of work, dynamic, that we should first evaluate before you say to people, oh, AI has come in, look, it's done the 40%, but what about the other 60%? You're going to take that piece of people out there and leave that gap? Doesn't make sense. And I know I speak generally, but does that
I,
make sense though in that context?
yeah, I know exactly what you mean, and I agree with you. I was wondering if you could grab every organization just before they were to roll out a new AI tool and say one thing, what would it be?
I have, since you switched on my radar even broader in terms of AI for equity, I really feel I would recommend to employers, go and do your bias audit. Go and be
Mhm.
so clear on the biases across all the spectrum of your being as a company, whether it be in your policies, your practices, your mindsets, or wherever. But do that bias audit. But here's the trick. That bias audit might realize 40 items. Don't try and do all 40 at the same time. Take the Pareto principle, take the 80-20, go and do those 20%. That'll get rid of 80% of the bias. That's what you need to be doing. So please don't be, oh, throw my hands up, a bias audit, it's going to just unlock all these things. And no, be aware of anything. Always work to the 80-20 best you can, wherever you can, because it means you're focusing on what matters. I think, in simplicity.
Well, that is all of our main questions done. I feel like I've learned so much already, and I have a whole page of notes as well to reflect on. Now we're on to the quick fire round, which is my personal favorite. I say this to every guest we have. I feel like you get such great like little snippets of information there. And yeah, so are you ready?
Yes.
Yay. um It's not funny. So, um, AI meeting summaries. Do you love them or hate them?
I have to say I love them, but only as a draft.
Mhm.
They do the function, they bring it together. But what I feel it misses is capturing those little nuances in there about the heart and the mind. In the heart of the people, it's got the mind maybe. But I know that Johnny showed up there, and I wanted to put in a little recognition in the safe. I just send it out. I lose that, which I would have been putting into my minutes and saying, Leah, that was such a wonderful suggestion you made there, really where that came from. I just know that it was rooted in your love for that and your passion. So well done. Thank you. And that gets missed.
It does. I agree with you. What is the one thing every organization gets wrong about hybrid working?
I I get to feel that it's about, they seem to think policy is the answer to all of that. Policy will guide this, policy will direct, you can't this, you gotta work these hours, these are your core things. It's not about that. It's intentional by design, and it's a two-way street. What you put on the table, you help and you get your employees, and not to just accept that working from home is, argument's sake, a given. It's an agreement, and let's both lean in and play. So keep your employer informed about what you're doing. Work transparently, work out loud. The manager feels better. So don't just capture it all into policy and think it's going to happen. Hybrid is by intention, by design.
Hmm. And finally, if AI could magically fix one thing about how Teams works, or any collaborative AI tool, what would it be? Or what should
I'm
it be? Should.
Yes. What I feel is there's a very huge untapped opportunity here that AI could help us fix, and that is the loss of institutional knowledge.
Hmm.
I really feel that if we get to use Jenny's words, reflect. If we reflect in our prompting, in our engagement with AI. Let's say, for example, I've been with this company for 15 years, and I've got all this institutional knowledge, and I reflect and put that back into the AI, and I'm saying, you know what, that was great, but do you know, Mr. and Mrs. AI, that this and this and this could have, blah, blah, blah. Are you aware of this and that? I'm now pouring my experience and knowledge into that institutionally, and when it responds, I get a richer outcome. And what I'm getting at here is that if now our in-house backend can harvest that and then reflect it back into the workings of that role, I get the institutional knowledge dispersed across the company. I hope that makes sense, but that's a loaded something for another day.
Yeah, we'll have to get you back on. I feel like we've just scratched the surface of all the things that we could talk about today.
Been awesome. Very, you know, what I've loved as well, a lot of unique thoughts that we haven't
Yeah.
had on the podcast before. So I love the fact that you're going to spark the synapses in different ways for people listening. So thank you so much, and all the work you do generally as well. Thank you for what you do.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I knew that this was going to be a really interesting podcast episode, but honestly, I have actually got a complete page of notes. I don't think I stopped writing that whole time. Like I've especially because I have started my own company last year. It's like these are a lot of things that I need to think about. It's really great.
I am more than happy to be there, to engage, to grow this. I do not know everything. You know what I do love about AI and what you've positioned there? Thank you again for the privilege to be here with you and your presence and your thread of what you're putting out into the world, your focus. I still honestly mean that. It's a wonderful focus here, and keep putting on the radar the aspect of AI's ability to bring in quality or equality. So if I may ask and invite, at any time, if you want to reach out on the side, and it doesn't need to be by podcast, more love to grow and engage with you, because AI is new to everybody.
Mhm.
Yeah, no,
It
that's
really
great.
is.
Yeah, we definitely want to continue the conversations, and
Yeah.
maybe we have to bring our podcast guest community together as well.
Yes,
That'd be
yes.
brilliant.
There's just
I
so
would
many
love that.
brilliant people.
Thanks for listening to AI for Equity. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Stay curious, stay bold, and keep using AI to build a fairer future.